Heartwarming encounter. Billionaire discovers incredible truth about disabled mother and her twin daughters. David stepped out of his sleek, black Tesla, the engine purring to silence. As he looked around the familiar streets of Maplewood, memories rushed in like a tidal wave. Childhood laughter echoed from the playground, and the scent of fresh grass brought him back to simpler days. He had left this quaint suburban town, chasing the glitz of a city life that had made him a self-made billionaire. But something was missing, something deeper than wealth. He felt a tug to reconnect with the community he left behind, to find purpose amid his pouring success. As he wandered down Oak Street, he spotted a woman sitting on a bench outside the local community center. Her name was Sarah. She was a disabled single mother with a heart full of determination. Braiding her twin daughter's hair, she wore a smile that shone like the summer sun, while her soulful eyes spoke of stories unshared, trials faced yet unbroken. Emma and Lily giggled with delight, drawing drawings that embodied pure joy. David could see the warmth of family reflected in their carefree laughter, something he longed for. Before he could stop himself, he approached her. "Hi, I'm David," he said, offering a hand. Sarah eyed him warily but smiled back, her expression a mix of gratitude and skepticism. They struck up a conversation, and David couldn't help but be inspired. The bakery she dreamed of, filled with sweet aromas and cozy corners, was more than a business. It was a home, a gift for her daughters, a community gathering space. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As David volunteered at the community center, trying to lend a hand, he felt a wall of resistance. The townsfolk eyed him with suspicion, whispering behind their hands. Who was this outsider, waltzing in with his wealth? At first, David thought money could patch the gaps, bridge the divide. But Sarah's struggles, with her endless responsibilities and sleepless nights, touched something inside him, a forgotten hum of empathy. The deeper he engaged, the more he realized that he might be viewed as a threat to their pride, rather than a benefactor. It stung, like a punch to the gut, when he overheard a conversation where his intentions were twisted into something sinister. The drop in his heart matched the rising anxiety in Sarah's eyes when she learned his plans to invest in local businesses. They were stepping on a tightrope, balancing hope against skepticism. In a heartbreaking twist, an unforeseen incident forced Sarah into an emotional corner, her vulnerabilities laid bare before the entirety of Maplewood. As David instinctively stepped in, a protective instinct ignited. Their stories blended in a way that was raw and real, flipping the narrative of the rich helping the poor upside down. Would he be met with acceptance or rejection? The lines between savior and threat began to blur as they faced the communal tension together. The chapter of David and Sarah hung in the air, teetering between a hopeful new beginning or a devastating fall from grace. Would they unite to rise against the weight of judgment, or would the shadows of their pasts keep them shackled? Only time would reveal where their intertwining destinies would lead, lips pursed, hearts racing, as the future loomed on the horizon. David's heart raced as he absorbed the weight of the moment. The town's air felt thick with uncertainty and unspoken feelings. He sensed Sarah's hesitance. She was on the verge of sharing something monumental but held back, straining against the fear of being misunderstood. Suddenly, a commotion broke the silence. A local man stumbled into the community center, eyes darting wildly. The bakery's application got denied. He shouted, his voice raw with frustration. "Sarah, we thought you had it all lined up. The town needs your dream." The hushed crowd murmured, the energy in the room shifting sharply, like the wind before a storm. David caught Sarah's gaze. It flickered with desperation, as if the world had momentarily tilted, threatening to spill her carefully constructed plans. "What does this mean?" he asked, not just curious but deeply concerned. "They say I don't have the experience. They doubt if I can handle it," she whispered, her voice shaking slightly as she clutched her daughters closer. Their innocent eyes reflected love and concern, making the entire moment feel more impactful. David felt his chest tighten. "But you're capable, Sarah. You pour your heart into everything," he said, an unexpected determination flooding through him. "Let us not let them nip this in the bud. We can fight for it together." Together? A flicker of hope crossed her face, mixed with skepticism. Town gossip had painted this billionaire as a threat to their small world pride. What will they think? What will it look like to them? They'll see a community coming together, he countered, emboldened by the strength pooling inside him. Let us face this together. We can reapply, show them how much this means to you and your girls. Tension filled the air, but a glimmer sparkled in Sarah's eyes as they exchanged glances, almost as if an invisible bond flourished in that shared moment. But just then, a group of disapproving townsfolk eyed them from the back, whispering more fiercely than before. The same men he had overheard before were locked in a silent discussion, clearly suspicious of David's growing involvement. "The support you intend to offer is wonderful, David," one of the men finally spoke, voice dripping with skepticism. "But this is Maplewood. We take pride in rising on our own without handouts." A few murmurs of agreement echoed across the room. David clenched his jaw, torn between his desire to help and the hostility hanging like thick fog. He turned to Sarah, who was watching him closely, her fear palpable. This was more than just a bakery. It was her lifeline, her chance to weave a story of triumph amid the challenges she'd faced. "Maybe they see me as a threat, but what if I could be your voice?" he suggested, desperation creeping into his tone. "What if we showed them it's not about the money, but about the love we put into our dreams?" Eyes locked, Sarah felt her heart pulse faster. Could it be possible? Could they turn judgmental gazes into supportive ones, and doubt into belief? With a deep breath, she exhaled all the pent-up emotions. "What if it doesn't work?" she asked, fear creeping back in. "All I know is we have to try." The weight of those words lingered, echoing the challenges ahead, yet holding immense promise. As they stood together, the community still buzzing around them, tremors of uncertainty hung on the horizon. Would they gather the courage to face the crowd and rally support for Sarah's dream? Or would the skepticism lead them to a darker path, one that pushed them apart? The stage was set, the potential for either victory or failure looming large. Their next steps would determine everything. Would their next moves touch the hearts of Maplewood, or would they be cast aside, remnants of a fleeting dream? David and Sarah shared a determined glance, ready to take the plunge into the unknown, hearts pounding. Sarah took a deep breath, her heart thumping in her chest. The community center felt suffocating, a hotbed of opinions and fears. She could almost hear the whispers surrounding her. "What are you doing, Sarah? And why do you need him?" The doubts her neighbors already held were like heavy weights, pressing her down. David reached for her hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. It was a small gesture, but it sent a jolt of warmth through her. Here was this man, a stranger to her until recently, willing to step into the fray for her. The thought was both comforting and terrifying. "We can do this," he said again, quieter this time. "Okay," she finally replied, the word escaping her lips like a sigh. "Let us try." The murmuring crowd shifted as David stepped to the center of the room, his stance commanding. People turned, their faces a mix of curiosity and disdain. "Can I have a moment, please?" he called out, the uncertainty in his voice woven through with an undercurrent of conviction. "What do you want with our community?" someone shouted from the back. David winced but pressed on. "I know I'm new here," he admitted, his expression sincere. "But I've seen the strength in this town. I've watched Sarah work tirelessly for her dream, and I believe this bakery isn't just about baked goods. It's about bringing together families, friends, and neighbors around something delicious." He paused, seeing snippets of heads nodding, the tension shifting slightly. "Some may see me as an outsider, but I believe we all want the same thing, a chance to make our dreams come true." He searched the crowd's faces. "What if you helped Sarah create something wonderful? Something that could make all of us proud?" The room grew still, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Sarah could feel her heart speed up, hope flickering in her chest. She glanced at her daughters, and they smiled back, innocence and faith shining in their eyes. But we don't need your help, David, another voice came from the shadows, firm and resolute. If we succeed, we want it to be on our own terms. The crowd murmured again, a ripple of unease spreading through them. Of course, I understand that, David said, his tone respectful yet unyielding. But a little support isn't a handout. It's unity. It's coming together as a community. I'm not here to take anything from you. I just want to see Sarah's dream flourish. But how can we trust you? Someone yelled. You're a billionaire. What do you care about a small-town bakery? David inhaled deeply, the moment heavy with tension. I'm just a man who sees potential. I see a community that deserves a chance to chase dreams, to believe in each other, no matter the size of those dreams. It's not about me, it's about all of you. A silence fell over the crowd. Sarah could almost hear the gears turning in their heads. What was more important, the pride of doing it alone or the possibility of creating something bigger together? Soft whispers started to build. He makes a point, and what if he could really help? Floated through the air. David glanced at Sarah, his anxiousness mirrored in her gaze. We can prove we're worth this chance, he said, confidence shining in his eyes once more. As their eyes met, Sarah finally felt a swell of determination. I know I may not have the experience yet, she spoke, the words emerging with newfound strength. But I have passion. I can do this, with all of you. The murmurs grew louder, uncertainty battling hope. The energy shifted again, more like waves crashing on a shore. Would they rally behind her dream? Would they transform skepticism into support? David felt the weight of the moment. Someone would soon either support them or stand in their way. Suddenly, a familiar voice broke through the noise. Let us hear Sarah again. She deserves a chance. The crowd quieted again, focused and curious. Sarah's heart raced. Would they embrace this idea of collaboration, or would fear win? Taking another steadying breath, she prepared to share her vision, ready to cement her place in Maplewood's heart and community. But just as the atmosphere seemed to lighten, the door creaked open, and an unexpected figure walked in. The energy shifted once more, heavy with skepticism. Who was this new arrival, and how would they impact the fragile moment that was unfolding? The figure stepped into the room, and the tension contorted like a live wire. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. It was Susan, her former friend, now an uneasy acquaintance who hadn't seemed to harbor any ill will until the breakup of their close-knit circle over last year's community conflicts. Sarah could sense the gravity of her entrance, a storm rolling back into the already tumultuous atmosphere. Susan, Sarah whispered, feeling the weight of old wounds resurface. With a look that ranged from shock to disbelief, Susan scanned the room before landing her gaze on David. What's going on here? David shot a glance at Sarah, a silent question passing between them. He cleared his throat, stepping back slightly, his presence a protective barrier. We're discussing a bakery project that Sarah is passionate about, he offered, his tone as hospitable as possible, even as eyes like arrows darted toward them. Susan's expression hardened, a flash of annoyance flickering across her features. A bakery? With him? She scoffed, gesturing toward David, her voice rising slightly. You think he's going to help this community? He's just here to profit off of our dreams. Sarah stepped forward, her heart pounding as she faced the woman who once shared her goals with utmost sincerity. Susan, please. That's not fair, she said, trying hard to inject her voice with reassurance. David sees potential in each of us. He wants to support my dream and our community. Support? Susan interrupted, sarcasm dripping from her words. Just because he throws money around doesn't mean he understands us. The crowd shifted uneasily, the murmurs growing louder. Sarah's vision blurred slightly as she tried to take it all in, the apprehension on her neighbors' faces, the warmth of her daughter's hands still gripping her arm, and the iron will of David's resolve next to her. She couldn't let this moment slip away. Look, I know you all may not trust him, or me, Sarah said, her voice growing stronger as she addressed the room again. But does that mean we should dismiss the chance to work together? We can lift each other up rather than tear each other down. But what if it all falls apart? Someone yelled from the back, speaking the unspoken fears that hung thick in the air. What if this is just another one of those bright ideas that lead nowhere? David stepped forward again, determined to bridge the chasm that had opened between them all. I can understand why you would feel that way, he said earnestly. But I'm offering my support not just to Sarah, but to each person in this room. This bakery could not only be a source of income but a symbol of what we can achieve together when we set aside our differences. Why should we trust you? Susan pushed back, her voice sharpened by skepticism. What do you know about our lives, our struggles here? David paused, his eyes softening as they locked onto Susan's, and in that moment, he shared a story of his own struggles, of family losses and dreams abandoned. He spoke of longing for authenticity, the desire to build something meaningful far beyond profit. Sarah could see the shifting expressions around the room. Some were softening, leaning in. It was like watching shadows dance in flickering candlelight. She could only hope it might be enough to let their conceit melt and yield to a chance for understanding. But just as a glimmer of hope kindled, a louder voice interrupted the fragile peace. All this talk of unity is nice, but what will we actually do if it doesn't work? A figure stood near the entrance, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. It was Mark, Susan's brother, known for his unrelenting pragmatism and sometimes cutting honesty. Mark, think about the possibilities. Sarah responded, trying not to let her frustration spill into anger. What if we could create something meaningful together? Can't you see how this could bring us closer? As voices clashed, emotions building in the crowd, Sarah's heart raced. Would this be the moment they opened their hearts, or would fear cast them back into the shadows of isolation? Suddenly, amidst the turmoil, the back door swung open again, and a chilling chill entered the room. The arrival was unanticipated, and as the figure stepped forward into the light, everyone paused. Did they really want to know who it was, and how they might tip the scales in favor of unity or division? The figure stepping into the light was a young man, maybe in his mid-20s, but with an old-fashioned sense of purpose in his stride. Everyone squinted against the sudden brightness, tilting their heads to catch a clear glimpse. He was slightly disheveled, wearing a jacket that seemed a size too big and hair that flopped haphazardly across his forehead. But it was the determination in his sharp blue eyes that held the crowd's attention. "Excuse me," he called, his voice rising above the whispers and murmurs. "I couldn't help but overhear." The air snapped taut, as every head turned toward him. "I'm Lucas, and I have something important to say." Sarah felt a flicker of confusion and hope intertwined like vines in her chest. Who was this young man? What could he possibly bring to this chaotic meeting? He continued, stepping fully into the light. "I know this community has been through a lot, and I understand trust doesn't come easy. But what I've just heard ignited something in me." He paused, scanning the room as though searching for familiar eyes. "Sarah has a dream, a bakery that could become our heart, our gathering place. I've seen it work before in other communities." Mark, clearly skeptical, rolled his eyes but said nothing. "I grew up in a place where we thought the only way out was through despair and isolation," Lucas said, his voice steady as he pressed on. "But when we took a chance on each other, something incredible happened. We lifted each other up." His gaze fell on David. "And I've seen people like him use their skills for good. Sometimes, all we need is someone to believe in us." A light flickered just behind Sarah's ribcage, a small flame of courage. She wanted to lean into this moment, but the question still hovered. "But how do we make it different this time?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper, but strong enough to cut through the doubt. Lucas took a deep breath, his shoulders squared with purpose. "Because this is about more than just a bakery. It's about hope and community. It's about transforming not just the building, but our beliefs about one another. You have the power to shape this, to take a chance." He stepped a few paces closer. "I know I'm just a kid, but I've learned that communities grow strongest when they come together in times of uncertainty. I believe you can do this. I believe in Sarah. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A few exchanged glances, surprise mingled with curiosity. Sarah felt a rush of gratitude mixed with disbelief. Could this young man really see the potential within their fractured community? Maybe you're right, someone murmured from the back, a voice barely audible beneath the sudden electric buzz in the room. Susan's skepticism remained palpable, but even she couldn't mask the flicker of curiosity in her eyes. And you just expect us to trust you? What's your stake in this? I'm not asking you to trust me at all, Lucas replied. But I want to be a part of this. I want us all to be part of something bigger. We can connect to our roots and our dreams. Together. As the room fell silent, the heaviness of doubt hung in the air, but it was beginning to crack like thunder before a storm. Sarah felt her heart race as adrenaline surged through her. This was a chance, but would they grasp it? Just then, a loud beeping noise echoed from the back alley. A faint cry followed, pulling everyone's attention as the door swung wide open again, this time revealing a young woman cradling something in her arms. Help! Please! Faces turned in her direction, the tension now palpable with urgency. Who was she? And what disaster had led her here to this pivotal moment? Questions raced through Sarah's mind, but one stood out above the others. Could this be the catalyst that would turn their doubts into action? The young woman stumbled into the room, her shirt stained and her eyes wide with desperation. Her arms cradled something small and delicate, wrapped tightly in a blanket. The crowd tensed, a ripple of concern coursing through them. Sarah could feel her heart pounding in her chest. Please, someone help! The woman's voice cracked, straining to project over the growing murmurs. Lucas instinctively took a step forward, his brow furrowing with determination. What happened? He asked, his voice devoid of theatrics, just raw concern. It's my baby, she gasped, looking around at the faces staring back at her, searching for compassion. She's not breathing right. I don't know what to do. A silence fell, heavy and suffocating, as if everyone was holding their breath. Sarah could feel heat rising in her cheeks, a mix of empathy and fear. She wanted to reach out, but her feet felt rooted to the floor. Let me see. The voice cutting through the tension belonged to David, who wasted no time crossing the room. He motioned for the woman to come closer. Easy now. What's your name? Emily, the woman replied, clutching the blanket tighter as she approached. David knelt down, his fingers gently pushing back the fabric, revealing a small face. The baby was red-faced and gasping, tiny fists clenching in discomfort. How old? He asked, his voice calming, focused. A few months, Emily said, tears streaming down her face. She hasn't been well since last night. Brows furrowed with concern, a few onlookers stepped forward, ready to help. Lucas remained by Emily's side, his presence steadying her. You did the right thing by coming here, he assured her. We're here for you. With practiced hands, David began checking the baby's responses, communicating with soft murmurs. The crowd watched, breath held, as moments stretched out like a tightrope hanging over a deep chasm. Time seemed to slow. Sarah clutched the edges of the table, anxiety twisting in her stomach. She had stepped into this meeting with a vision of community and hope, and now a life was hanging in the balance. It felt surreal, a collision of ambitions and emergencies, as the room hung on David's next move. Just breathe with me, okay? David said, lifting the baby and cradling her against his chest. He motioned for Emily to follow his lead, encouraging her to breathe slowly. In and out. Focus on that. I promise we're going to help her. The air was heavy, thick with the weight of uncertainty. When Emily's sobs finally softened into shallow breaths matched to David's steady rhythm, the crowd seemed to exhale collectively. Can someone call for an ambulance? Lucas urged, his voice breaking the fragile silence. We need professional help. Hands shot up, signaling readiness, but Sarah remained frozen, her mind racing. She had spent so long trying to create a space for connection, a bakery where dreams and community melded. Yet here they were, faced with an immediate, heart-wrenching crisis. Then, a thought flashed through her mind: if they could come together now in the face of despair, what could they achieve? As she watched David and Lucas work seamlessly with Emily, a flicker of inspiration sparked deep within her. It felt like an undeniable call to action. The lines between hope and fear blurred in that dim room, each face reflecting a shared resolve. Could this moment crystallize their intentions, pulling them closer to the bakery they all needed? Emily looked up, her eyes glistening with gratitude mixed with sheer panic. Is she going to be okay? The question hung in the air, filling the newly charged space with deep urgency. What did it take to transform fear into trust? Would they rise together as a community, held aloft by compassion and connection? Before Sarah could answer, the sound of sirens wailed in the distance, a promise of help coming through the storm of uncertainty. Would it be enough to light the path ahead? As the piercing sirens grew louder, a flicker of life sparked in the crowd. Lucas held Emily's gaze, steady and reassuring. Help is on the way, he soothed, his presence a calming force amidst the chaos. Sarah felt the energy in the room shift, shoulders relaxed slightly, breaths became a bit less labored. Emily's grip on the blanket loosened just a fraction, allowing David to cradle her baby more comfortably. You're doing well, he murmured, continuing the rhythmic breathing that seemed to cling like a lifeline to them all. Each inhale filled the space with an unspoken promise. They would not let this moment slip through their fingers. Yet still, the weight of the air pressed down, heavy with worry. Sarah's heart ached as she watched the tiny face, twisted with fear and uncertainty. She had never been a parent, but instinctually, she understood the depth of a mother's love. She stepped closer to Emily, offering her a supportive smile, hoping it might bridge the chasm of despair. I wish I could do more, Sarah whispered, the words barely escaping her lips. Emily's gaze flicked to her, and for a moment, the panic faded just enough for a small nod of understanding. No, it helps. Just being here it helps, she managed to say, voice breaking but filled with warmth. As the sirens grew closer, Sarah turned her focus back to David, who was speaking softly to the baby. You're strong. Just hold on a little longer, sweetheart. His fingers gently brushed the small head, a tender gesture that seemed to flicker a tiny ember of hope. The doors burst open, and in walked the paramedics, their presence bringing a flood of authority and calm. The crowd edged back, giving them space to work. Sarah watched as David swiftly relayed what he had observed. Is she stable? One of the medics asked, crouching down next to David. Yes, but she needs oxygen, David said, his voice firm. She has been struggling to breathe, but she's responding to stimuli. The paramedics jumped into action, their movements deft and practiced. They brought in equipment, while Emily's gaze darted between the medics and her baby, an all-consuming worry etched on her features. The weight of the moment felt almost unbearable. Emily needed to understand that help was at hand and above it all, that she and her child weren't alone. You did such a brave thing by coming here. You're not alone now, Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper yet sure. But just as the ambulance team began to stabilize the baby, an inexplicable flash of doubt raced through Sarah. Would this small act of bravery ripple out to others? Would the community rise to the occasion, sparking unity that could transform the bakery and their lives forever? It was Emily's next question that cast a spell of silence across the room. Will they find someone to take care of her? The question landed like a heavy stone, each person absorbing it. Would love and care stretch far enough to envelop every moment in the future? Sarah's heart raced at the possibility and at the burden of the answer. They could build a network of support, but would it be enough? As thoughts swirled, a sudden commotion erupted near the door. A tall figure burst in, eyes wide with concern. It was Emily's sister, Julia, who had been searching frantically for them. Would this reunion catalyze the communal bond Sarah desperately wanted to forge? The tension crackled like electricity in the air as Julia approached, the question of the hour hanging heavily in the atmosphere. Would they find their way through the labyrinth of uncertainty together? Julia rushed in, her expression a mix of confusion and pure concern. Emily! Oh my God! She cried, eyes darting to the baby in David's arms. The moment hung in the air, a brief silence where hearts held their breath. Emily's face transformed, flooding with relief and love as she spotted her sister, Julia! The embrace that followed was desperate, both women clutching at each other, their shared fear knitting them closer together. Is she okay? What happened? Julia's voice trembled, but she didn't pull away. Her eyes searched Emily's for answers, clinging to hope. David shifted, allowing Emily a chance to speak, to process the whirlwind of emotions. She is struggling. The medics are here, Emily managed, wiping tears from her cheeks. Her vulnerability was palpable. Stay with us, Julia whispered, and Sarah observed the way their bond illuminated their shared strength. It was a reminder that even in chaos, love anchored them. The medics worked efficiently, their movements smooth and synchronized a choreographed dance of urgency and professionalism. They slid the oxygen mask onto the baby's face, and as the rhythmic sound of the equipment filled the air, each breath seemed to draw the room a little closer together. Take it easy, sweetheart, David cooed, his voice steady. Just breathe. You're such a fighter. Emily's hand found his, their connection radiating warmth. They were tethered not only by the moment but by determination, a shared resolve that life would roll on. Julia stepped aside, allowing the medic to transport Emily's baby to an incubator being prepared. I can't believe this is happening, she murmured, half in disbelief. What can I do? Just be here, Sarah chimed in, sensing the lift in their spirits. That's enough. As the baby was tended to, the crowd still watched, hearts heavy but starting to lighten. Each shared glance, every soft word exchanged wove a tapestry of support. The fear that once filled the room now quivered with the promise of hope. One of the medics turned to Emily, her focus unwavering. We'll take good care of her. But we need to get you checked too. Are you feeling okay? I'm fine. I can't lose her. I didn't expect my first day back to be like this, Emily choked out, her voice only barely containing the storm inside. Then let us make sure you're here for every moment, the medic replied, and Emily nodded, tears glistening, reflecting the flickers of light in the room. As the ambulance team prepared to move the child, Julia stood close. What if everything changes now? She asked quietly, half to herself. I hope it does, Sarah responded, her heart swelling with the possibilities. This could change everything for everyone involved. Emily glanced around, hearing the shared whispers from those who had gathered, the community that was piecing together an understanding. Their faces held encouragement, compassion, as they looked back at her. Do you think it's possible? She asked, her voice cracking just slightly, filled with hope and uncertainty. Julia squeezed her hand tightly. Of course it is. We just need to stay strong together, no matter what comes next. As the paramedics wheeled the baby away, Emily, Julia, Sarah, and David stood together, bracing for the uncertainty ahead. Would their bond hold through this storm? Would the strength of love and community pave the way for something greater than the fears they faced? In that instant, amid the noise and haste, uncertainty seemed to hover. Just how far could their connections reach? Would it be enough to keep hope alive through whatever awaited them on the other side? The hospital waiting room was a whirlwind of emotions. Emily could feel the tension in the air as her heart raced. The rhythmic beeping of machines and the whispers of concerned friends blended into a haunting melody. It's amazing how a single moment can unravel the fabric of normalcy, turning lives upside down. Julia paced back and forth, her hands trembling. I can't just sit here. I need to know what is happening, she said, biting her lip. Let us give them time, David replied, trying to keep his own anxiety in check. He wanted to be strong for both Emily and Julia, but every second that passed made him feel more helpless. Emily took a deep breath, the weight of the situation crushing her chest. She couldn't shake the feeling of dread coiling in her stomach. What if something is wrong? What if she couldn't finish the thought? It's going to be okay, Sarah said softly, stepping up to Emily's side. They're doing everything they can. She is a fighter, you can see it in her. The door to the treatment room swung open, and the medic emerged, wearing a mask of resolution. Emily? He called out, and the room fell silent as everyone focused solely on him. Is she okay? Emily's voice was barely above a whisper. The medic nodded, his expression cautiously optimistic. She is stable now, but we'll need to monitor her closely. There were some complications, but she is stronger than most. Relief washed over them, but Emily still felt the sharp edge of fear lingering. What complications? She pressed, her heart clenching. We've assessed the situation, and while she'll need some support, we believe she can pull through with the right care. Those words ignited a small spark of hope within Emily. However, she couldn't help but think about what that right care would entail. How much would it change their lives? Can I see her? Emily's voice wavered, but her determination was unwavering. The medic hesitated. Yes, but just for a moment. We need to ensure everything remains stable. As they walked toward the room, Emily could feel the shaky ground beneath her feet. Each step brought back memories of her little girl's first kicks, her first words, and the overwhelming love that had filled their lives, despite the challenges. When they entered, her eyes immediately found the small bundle in the incubator. Tiny arms and legs were wrapped in blankets, with a gentle light glowing overhead. The baby was breathing, albeit with the help of a machine, and in that moment, all Emily could see was a miracle. Tears streamed down her face as she moved closer. I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here, she whispered, her heart swelling with a mix of love and fear. Her fingers brushed against the incubator. She wanted nothing more than to scoot closer, to feel her daughter's warmth against her skin. Everything will be all right, Julia said softly from behind, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. Emily turned, gratitude washing over her. I don't know what I'd do without you. She felt a bond growing stronger, rooted in shared pain and love. As they stood there, the weight of uncertainty lingered in the air. Could they really navigate this new reality together? What else could change from here on out? Suddenly, down the hallway, a familiar face appeared, someone they never expected to see. Emily's breath hitched. What are they doing here? She murmured, an unexpected wave of anxiety cresting again. Just who would step into their lives now, and how would they affect the fragile thread of hope threading through this moment? As the familiar figure approached, Emily squinted against the hospital lights. It was Susan, her former friend, standing hesitant, almost as if she were unsure whether to invade this moment, or to simply observe it from the outskirts. Her brows knitted in concern, but Emily saw something else, perhaps a flicker of regret. Emily, Susan uttered softly, stepping forward, her voice tentative. I wanted to see how you're doing. The words hung between them, charged with memories both good and bad. A wave of emotions washed over Emily, dousing her in nostalgia and heartache. I never thought you'd come, she replied, struggling to mask her surprise. Time had changed their dynamics, but could it mend the rift? I know we haven't been close since everything, Susan stammered, glancing nervously at Julia and David. But I wanted to help. I brought blankets and some meals from the church. We're all worried about you. Caught off guard, Emily felt a tightening in her chest. Was this the olive branch she never thought they would extend? Thank you, she managed, her throat thick with emotion. The warmth of kindness spread within her, loosening knots of fear. As Susan entered the room, the atmosphere shifted. She approached the incubator with a motherly tenderness. The sight of Emily's baby, so fragile yet breathing, seemed to cradle them all in a shared moment of hope. She is beautiful, Susan gasped, her eyes shimmering. You must be so scared. Through the window of the incubator, Emily saw small fingers grasping the air. The hope that felt so distant now surged within her. I am, but she is strong, and she has got me. Emily's heart swelled as commitment surged through her voice. The door opened again, and Lucas appeared, still carrying his resolve from earlier. I hadn't heard about what happened. I'm so sorry. His eyes darted from Emily to the new arrivals, then back. If you need anything, I'm here for you. Julia stepped beside him, a silent pact forming among them as trust began to stabilize. If we rally together, we can make sure Emily and her baby have everything they need. We can be a community again, she declared, her voice reassuring yet visibly charged with the urgency of their situation. A ripple of agreement threaded through the remaining crowd gathered outside, whispers rippling like waves washing ashore, starting to pull everyone together again. Sarah's emotions surged. She felt the real possibility of change blossoming among them. In that moment, as thoughts of crossing the invisible barriers of division began to ignite, David looked at Sarah. Together, he repeated softly, a promise wrapped in his gaze. Yes, Sarah responded, feeling the weight of those words deepen with their truth. What we have here, it's not just about a bakery, it's about connection, about community, about love. Each word chimed clear and strong, line by line, a solid foundation forming. Empowered by an unexpected alliance, they knew they had to unite. As they stepped toward Emily, a collective resolve began to brew in the air. Let us create a support system, Susan suggested, courage glimmering in her eyes. We'll organize shifts to help Emily, start fundraisers. That bakery can be a hub, just like you dreamed. The ideas flowed, excitement washing over Emily as she realized that she wouldn't have to shoulder this burden alone. The warmth of community filled her heart, a blanket against the uncertainty. Yes, Lucas added enthusiastically. Imagine local families coming together, making memories, and supporting each other, a gathering space filled with laughter and hope. Emily felt tears of gratitude pooling in her eyes again. It was exactly what she had yearned for. I'd love that more than anything, she whispered as if sharing a treasured secret. In that brightly lit hallway, something beautiful unfurled, a new beginning woven from the threads of old wounds. The rifts started to mend, and with every voice that added to the chorus of support, barriers faded. As they banded together, laughter and ideas floated through the air. Plans emerged, not just for the bakery, but weaving into the very fabric of their shared lives, facing fears and aspirations side by side. It wasn't just the fate of Emily's baby at stake. It was about the heart of the community beating stronger together. Would they embrace the challenge ahead, dedicating themselves to supporting one another? Hand in hand, hearts racing, hope surging across the room, Emily finally grasped the reality she had been searching for all along. She knew they had something extraordinary at stake. And in the glow of connection, she asked herself once more, what else could this unity accomplish? This was just the beginning, and each person felt the tantalizing weight of change bend the horizon. Now was the time for action, a chance to transform their small town into a beacon of hope, resilience, and shared dreams. As the crowd began to shift back toward the waiting area, it felt like an exhale. An undeniable promise that the future was not just out there waiting to be grasped, it was already being forged in the hearts gathered right there. This moment was a call to arms, not just for Emily and her baby, but for every soul who had longed for connection, rejuvenating Maplewood in ways no one had thought possible. As they turned to leave, the whispers of ideas morphed into laughter, leaving a lingering echo of possibility hanging in the air. Let this story inspire us all. The strength of community lies in overcoming hesitation, in embracing vulnerability, and in forging paths together. Don't wait another moment. You need to subscribe now so you won't miss the next incredible story that unfolds here. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread this message of hope. Comment below to share how this journey touched you. And please share instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us inspire each other. This is the moment to show your support.